News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Very good evening to you. This is Newsline Zoom. Our guest today is no stranger to our program, and he's been a constant help and assistance given to us. All, of course, in the national interest, in the interest of the people. And so what better time indeed to have the retired senior deputy governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. W.A. Wijewardena. Very good evening to you, Doctor.
Very good evening, Faraz.
It's good to have you on the program. Obviously, the key operative word right now is DDO, Domestic Debt Optimization. I love that word, optimization. And the English language is so quaint. But tell me, Dr. Wijewardena, we've heard, it's now become law, I suppose, because Parliament has done that and the presidential proclamation must have been given. But what is the effect of this DDO, the Domestic Debt Optimization? Let's take it, the biggest single fund, the EPF. How does it affect our retirement funds?
This domestic debt optimization for us was originally intended to apply only to the superannuation funds. And there are superannuation funds like the Employees Provident Fund, which you just mentioned, then the Employees Trust Fund, and there are about 100 odd private pension and provident funds also in Sri Lanka. Like, for example, the Ceylon Electricity Board has its own pension fund and its own provident fund. Bank of Ceylon has its own pension fund, provident fund. Central Bank has its own provident fund and pension fund. Even Sri Lanka Army has a provident fund. Now, it applies to all these provident funds. That was the original intention, and that was what was presented by the Central Bank Governor to the Cabinet of Ministers, which approved it, and which was actually presented to Parliament also. When the Parliament approved on the 1st of July, the resolution giving all the powers relating to DDO, the word that you love so much, to the Minister of Finance, the Parliament also thought that it would apply only to superannuation funds. But now the exchange memorandum had been issued by issued by the Minister of Finance under the signature of the Minister of Finance, President Ranil Wickremesinghe. It actually applies to the treasury bonds held by all the institutions, excluding the individual bondholders. For example, if I hold a bond, it doesn't apply to me as an individual, but if a company or a provident fund or a commercial bank or even a mutual fund, even a foreign fund, if they hold it, it applies to all of them. Now, in terms of the present exchange memorandum, they will have to, before the 25th of July, they will have to exchange the bonds that they are holding right now and get a new bond. For example, if they hold a bond for, say, 120 rupees, they will get a new bond of 10 rupees each over 12 maturities, starting from 2027 to 2038. And in those maturities, there's a restriction on the interest rate. Whatever the interest rate that they get right now, irrespective of that, till 2026, they get 12%. Beyond that, they will get 9%. In other words, there's an interest rate cut. Because some of these bondholders, they have got the bonds around, say, 20 to 22%. Now, those percentages will have been reduced to 12% till 2026 and 9% beyond that period. So, in the case of the Employees Provident Fund, which is actually presently getting an average rate of return of 13% on its investment, will possibly get about, say, a little more than 9% over this period. And on the income that they get, they will have to pay an income tax of 14% on the gross income. And then after deducting their management expenses, they can distribute the balance available amount among the members. So in my view, if they get a rate of return of, say, 9%, they pay an interest income, they pay an income tax of some 1.3%. So that means 9 minus 1.3, 7.7. Another, say, half a percentage points for administration. Their members can get at least 7.7% on their membership fund. Brazil, they are getting 9%.
But
so there's a reduction in the membership earnings as a result of that.
But what about when you take into inflation? The 7% is then nothing.
Yeah, that part has not been taken, but Prime Minister, the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, in his exchange memorandum, has very clearly said that the inflation rate in the future will go down, and as a result, there's a bargain for the members of the Employees Provident Fund if they get at least 7%. On their membership fees, because if the inflation rate is below that, they will get a better rate return in terms of the exchange memorandum just has been issued.
Surely, Dr. Wijewardena, that is the minister's opinion. He may just be the president as well, but who cares about that? The fact is, there's nothing legally binding the government to pay the People's Retirement Fund a figure greater than the inflation.
Well, there's nothing in Sri Lanka today because when in year 2002, when Mr. S. Wijewardena was the governor of the central bank, Employees Provident Fund issued an investment policy statement, and in that policy statement, it was very clearly mentioned the members should get a minimum of 4% over the inflation rate. But over the years, this particular investment policy statement has now been, abandoned. So as a result, right now, as you say, there is no legally binding rate of interest that should be paid to members. So therefore, the interest rate that is paid may be below the inflation rate. For example, in 2022, members 9%, but the inflation rate was around 55%. So in real terms, it was a negative rate of return around, say, 46%. So likewise, now this particular factor can happen. And there is no guarantee that, the government would be able to maintain inflation below this 7%. That is, paid to the members in terms of the current DDO, Domestic Debt Optimization Program.
But Dr. Wijewardena, I put it to you that the reverse is all set in law. You have to go for the coupon rate cut. So if you had a bond up to, say, 22% or whatever, you would now be faced with the choice, if you can call it choice, that you have to exchange it under the finance minister's exchange memorandum. You have to change it. You have to go for a 12% up to 2026, which is a cut of approximately 10% of that coupon rate. And thereafter, beyond 2026, it'll be at the rate of 9%. But that whole process is set in law. However, when the EPF is looking at getting an interest rate of around, say, net of 7%, it has no provision in law to compensate for the rate of inflation. Surely, Dr. Wijewardena, in other parts of the world, they do have a system whereby they can compensate every year. It is calculated to take into account the cost of living and the inflation and so on. It's a simple theory if you put your mind to it. But because of this lack of equity on the part of the government to address this issue of the EPF earnings, it suggests to me that the government themselves are not too sure that this domestic debt optimization is going to work. Because if they were confident, then they would also put this bit, the compensatory amount, into
Yeah,
law.
you are perfectly correct because those are two different aspects, Farah. Because domestic debt optimization will simply take care of the interest of the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
What you have just suggested to me is to take care of the interest of the members. For that purpose, there must be a separate law where the law would, simply dictate that members should be paid a certain amount in real terms interest rate. So that part is another thing that has to come along with the new thing, because the new law will have to be passed by Parliament.
Yeah.
And giving the legal backing for this real interest rate factor that I have just mentioned. It's a separate thing.
Right. So now that we've made that point, so basically let's explore the effect of this memorandum of exchange, or the exchange memorandum. This is applicable to all funds.
Not only funds, even to companies and the other corporate institutions, excluding the individuals.
What about companies that have their...
Also they have been given the option to exchange the bonds that they are currently holding to exchange it for the new bonds to be issued by the Ministry of Finance. But the terms are same. The new bonds will carry 12% till 2026, and beyond that, till 2038, they will carry 9%.
But what?
And also,
yes, sorry.
Also, for us, there is another factor that I have to mention here. In terms of the exchange memorandum, if any superannuation fund does opt to exchange at least 50% of the holdings that they are having right now by 25th of July, they will be subjected to a higher income tax rate of 30%. Now, right now, they are paying 14%. That will be increased to 30%, which will become a very prohibitive tax for the superannuation fund, because they pay on the gross income, whereas all other corporate bodies pay income tax on the net income. So this is a very, in fact, it has taken out the voluntary nature of participating in the particular program, because you have no choice.
Back to this whole thing, that the English language is rather quaint. In English language, we have something called Hobsons choice. That means there's hardly any other choice. There's only one choice. It's Hobsons choice. But we'll explore Hobsons choice and other matters, including conflicts of interest. We'll find out about that after this short break. We are in conversation with Dr. Wijewardena, the retired Senior Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Proposal to Parliament to allow local government minister to convene local government bodies for a preferred period. Natasha gets bail. High Court judge says the ICCPR has deviated from its fundamental purpose. Government approval doubled to 21% in June, says Verite Research. Bandula Gunawardena's faith in the president. Is SM Chandrasena hoping for a new position? Southwestern monsoon activates. Torrential downpours experienced across the island. Schools in Nuwara given 2-day holiday.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Welcome back to Newsline Zoom. I'm in conversation with Dr. W.A. Wijewardena, the retired former Senior Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Dr. Wijewardena, we were talking about Hobson's choice, but in terms of making Sri Lanka investor friendly, we are we are stuck with without dollars, very little dollars. We're not servicing our loans, so we've got a false sense of security because we've got a few dollars floating about. But what is the message that you send to investors when at one stage in the game you're paying 22% on a bond, only for some months later the government to come and say, well, look, awfully sorry, oh boy, but we can't do this, so we're going to give you 12%. And if you don't agree, you're going to, instead of paying 14%, you're going to pay 30% income tax. What's the message to the investors?
Well, of course, for us, we'll have to accept the fact that Sri Lanka is a bankrupt nation today.
Right.
In case of a bankrupt nation, the Hobsons' choice is to lose everything.
Right.
But here, the government says it has offered certain things for people because, now the word, you said you loved the word, this optimization. Optimization means if you are gaining a profit, you maximize the profits. You are incurring a loss, you are minimizing the loss. Now here in this case, what the choice before us is to minimize the loss, either to lose everything or just to get something. So in that case, of course, the message has been very clear that we are trying to rescue at least something that may be payable to you. But there are two other aspects relating to this DDO. One is far as the central bank is presently holding 2.7 trillion worth of treasury bills plus another 340 billion worth of provisional advances.
Could you?
They are
sorry. Could you repeat the figure again?
The central bank is holding treasury bills amounting to 2.7 trillion rupees. 2.7 trillion rupees and another 340 billion by way of provisional advances to government, altogether about 3.04
trillion.
0 trillion. Now that is also to be optimized. Now that part to be optimized again by issuing bonds. Now, so the present exchange memorandum doesn't cover that part because that relates to treasury bills. That will be a separate arrangement with the central bank. Now you can see you are asking about the conflict of interest. Now the monetary board owns this, money, the 3.04 owed to the government. Similarly, in the case of the Employees Provident Fund, also the monetary board is the trustee of the Employees Provident Fund. So it has to look after 3.4 trillion money worth of the belonging to the members. So it has to play the role of a trustee. So when you play the role of the trustee for us, you have to invest your money with the same precaution and care that you are investing your own money. So monetary board will have to take the best interest of the members. At the same time, the very same monetary board has to now play another role of, supporting the government. So there's a conflict there. So that conflict has not been resolved and there is no any, acceptable explanation by the monetary board with respect to how they would resolve this conflict of, play the role of the guardian of the monies that have been placed with them in the central bank as well as in the Employees Provident Fund. And also how it would support the government's initiative to go for this domestic debt optimization. So this is yet to be, resolved.
So some years ago, wasn't there a proposal to make the ETF, to make those funds independent of the central bank?
Yes, of course, yeah. It was actually done during the time when Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe was the Prime Minister. Between 2001 and 2004, the idea was to amalgamate the Employees Trust Fund, Employees Provident Fund, and various other public sector provident funds like the Army Provident Fund and so forth, and establish a common social security board in Sri Lanka. In fact, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had accepted the proposal and we had even drafted the draft law. Unfortunately for him and for the country, the government was, ousted in the elections in 2004. And after the new government that came to power didn't pursue that matter. So this was one of the things that had been projected because the reason for us is now, you are now talking about the members of the Provident Fund. And
Yeah.
though they are the owners of that money, they have no any say about how the money should be invested, where it should be invested, what kind of a loss that they should take, because everything is done by the Monetary Board in terms of the APF Act that had been enacted as far back as 1959. So the new Social Security Board had tried to, resolve this issue by giving a voice to the members also.
Right.
So that part had not been implemented, and as a result, we are still with the old Employees Provident Fund, where the Monetary Board has to take all decisions with respect to the interest of the members. But the Monetary Board is required in making all the choices in the EPF as well as in the central bank to take the best interest of the taxpayers of the country and the best interest of the members of the Employees Provident Fund.
And in terms of, let's go back slightly to the IMF requirements, which is to try and raise even more revenue, to increase the revenue that the government collects. So when you have this domestic debt optimization, don't you agree that this is yet another blow, another spoke in the wheel of corporate Sri Lanka ability to pay greater taxes, because their profits will come tumbling down, and therefore they will pay less taxes.
Yeah, but
so they will employ less people. The banks, 36%, I believe, of all these government things are being held by the banks. So the banks are looking at a huge cut, and consequently their profits, and therefore they will pay less taxes. So it's all a bit it's not going anywhere, is it? In terms of,
but of course, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka has come up with a new accounting standard for the money that is being optimized. They have said if it is offered for the optimization program, the institution need not do the market adjustment in the profit and loss account, and therefore they don't come to the annual profit and loss accounts of the institutions. So therefore, there's a relief. They might continue to make the same profit, even though there is a loss in the income, because this is considered as an investment rather than a trading portfolio. Right. So this is the classification given by the Institute of Chartered Accountants to Central Bank, and it has been mentioned by Finance Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in the exchange memorandum also, that there is no any change in the profitability of this institution as a result of that.
Is this sort of system available anywhere else in the world?
Well, this is actually an arbitrary thing. What it means is, for us, whatever the treasury bond that you get from the government in exchange of the existing bonds, you can't trade it in the market. If you trade it in the market, the event that you trade in the market, then it will come to the trading portfolio, trading basket. You have to do the mark to market. So what it means, it will be fixed for the next maybe till about 2038 until all these bonds mature. It's a restriction.
Right. So are these restrictions, are they available in other countries? Do you know?
No. I mean, if you want to have a thriving and vibrant government securities market, you have to allow the bonds to be traded in the market. And when you do the trading for us, what you do is you have these two bins. One bin called the investment bin, the other one is called trading bin. You have to transfer the portfolio from the investment bin to the trading bin, and then of course you are subject to the Sri Lanka accounting standards, where you have to make the fair valuation and do the market adjustment of the income of the institution. But here, this will remain as it is. If they are to follow the prescription by the Institute of Chartered Accountants, they have to remain forever and permanently in the investment bin of the portfolio.
But you said that this is not available in
No,
anywhere.
I mean, it's not something that you have to allow. I mean, you have to allow a vibrant market to be developed, because ultimately it's the government which will be the loser, because people will have to keep the bonds that they buy until their maturity, just like the rupee securities that have been issued by the government of Ceylon prior to 1998, before we introduced this treasury bonds in 1998. Those bonds be kept up to maturity. Now here also you have to keep it up to maturity.
This program will be incomplete without me asking you this question. And so before you all start sending messages, I've beaten to it. Here's the question. And that question is this, Dr. Wijewardena. What is the benefit to this government?
Well, the government has a great benefit because the cash outflow from the treasury has been stopped. Because the number one is every treasury bond that matures till year 2027, the government doesn't have to pay them, because it will be passed on to the government that will come to power in 2027.
Right.
Second one is the interest payments, which is now around, say, 20 to 22% in the case of bonds issued recently. They will come down to 12%. So the government has a lesser interest payment. So in this case, the government's consumption expenditure will be lower, and the government's gross financial requirement will be lower. And therefore, they will meet the targets of the IMF, where the gross financial requirements will be brought down to around, say, 14% of GDP by year 2027. So that will be attained. But then, of course, the government that has to come to power in 2027 will have to take a bigger burden of, repaying all these bonds, because it's a bullet repayment. 1/12 of the bonds amounting to, this 8.9 trillion already will have to be repaid in a single year in 2027.
And if it's done this way, and the way our economy is going, even though it's a contracting economy and all that, what chances of the government having some success?
Well, government will have a success here because as you know, the major superannuation funds, the ETF and EPF, they are captive institutions with the Ministry of Finance.
Of
course, the Minister of Labour as well as the two state ministers of finance have voted for the resolution in Parliament. So therefore, these two funds have no independent say. They will have to go along with the government thing. With respect to the private ones, as I told you, since the tax rate is going to be increased from 14% of gross income to 30% of gross income, they don't have a choice. They also have to do it. So as a result, the government will be able to attain its target of cutting down the interest payments, as well as eliminating the principal amount to be repaid until year 2027. So therefore, it will be a relief for the government budget for 2023, 2024, and 2025 and 2026.
Thank you very much, Dr. W.A. Wijewardena, the retired former senior deputy governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, right here on Newsline Zoom. And that's the way it was. So it's time for me to wish you a very good evening. Try and have one as good as you can. And as always, God bless you all.